I would like to call the school board meeting for Tuesday, September 6, 2022 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Ms. Rivera, could you please take the roll?
Yes, Ms. Alonso Diaz?
Here.
Ms. Bradley?
Here.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson? Here. Ms. Knox?
Here.
Ms. Martirana?
Here.
Ms. Norris?
Here.
Ms. Sawyer?
Here.
Before we begin our first item of business, I'd like to do a check-in with everyone just to see how you are personally doing. We'll take 10 minutes for this check-in, and then we'll get started with our official business.
So some of you know I had the pleasure of visiting my son Cole, who is at the Air Force Academy, and it's always good when a mom gets to see her son. But more importantly, what I heard from him was he was feeling academically prepared, and that's always great to hear because he's a graduate of DMPS. So I'm pretty pumped up for two reasons today. So I happened to be on vacation for the first day of school, so I missed all of the clap-ins. So thanks to all of my board colleagues and others that were able to participate. But I also have a son and a daughter-in-law that teach for Des Moines Public Schools, so I regularly just ask them how things are going, especially at the beginning of the year. My son's at Lincoln, and my daughter-in-law is at Capitol View. And they were just talking about how excited they were for the year to get started. And I have to share my excitement as well. I just think there are so many great things to come this year, and I'm really looking forward to continuing our work on student outcome-focused governance, as well as the work we have ahead of us with regard to superintendent search. So happy to be able to do it with my board colleagues, and at the same time, happy to thank all of the folks that are leaning into our district to really help us do the important work that's ahead.
I will go ahead. I feel rested. It's one of those things that it feels like it needed the summer months, needed that time off. And school has started and it's been refreshing. I've enjoyed watching my daughter transition now into high school. Very interesting transition, I will say that, for those of you that have had your children make that transition. But just excited for this year. It just feels like a fresh year, and looking forward to all the work ahead of us and what's before us. So I'm grateful to be here at the table with all of you. Thank you.
I want to say that the clap-ins, definitely. I wish that schools started on different days for different schools so that we could all attend all schools. I'm kidding by that, okay? But just being able to experience parents, energy, staff, teachers, administrators, so exciting. So it is a good, DMPS is great. It's good.
Happy to be back at the board table and feeling very grateful for our health and yes, grateful to be here. Thank you. I will echo everyone's sentiments about the excitement around this year. It was wonderful to take my kiddos and drop them off for their first days in the district. I think the highlight so far as related to Des Moines Public Schools, though, is that my family and I went up to the East-North game, which is just around the corner from our house. We walked up there, and the concession stand was just like swarmed by visitors because North now has won their second football game, so yay Polar Bears. And we ended up just jumping in kind of impromptu, and it was so much fun that my 10-year-old said she can't wait to get her first job at a cash register because it was awesome. But remember to support our boosters. Thank you to all the boosters and volunteers that are out there making really great memories. It was such an amazing night to be a part of for North and East and to be a part of our community. I was really proud.
My brain is spent. I am very excited because I finished my first weekend of classes on my doctoral journey and was very excited to see some staff from DMPS that are also in my cohort. So very excited for that. But I have not been in school for 7 years, so my brain is just stretched to the max, but I'm super excited to be digging deeper into education, which has always been a passion of mine. And so looking forward to, I think 19 more classes is what I have left. So I've got the first weekend knocked out, looking forward to the next weekend, but super excited to be a learner. Those are fun conversations in the house with my kids of just going on this journey. So very excited for that. Thank you all for sharing how you're doing. This is something that we'll continue to do during our board meetings. I think it's very important that we check in and not be so quick to get to the first item of business. So I'll make sure to continue to check in with you all at each meeting. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Norris, motion to approve?
Sawyer, second.
Oh, I need to pull a few off of the consent agenda. My numbers. Can I please pull 10, 12, and 13 from the consent agenda?
Is it 9?
Sorry, 9,
9.
12, and 13.
When we get to consent, I'll make sure to note that, and we will vote on those separately. I have a motion by Ms. Norris, and was that a second by Sawyer? Okay, board members, please cast your votes. You can vote for this now, yep. The vote is approved 7-0. Next item on the agenda is other items with the Des Moines Public Schools Foundation. I'd like to invite Kristen Arnold to come to the podium and address attendees about the upcoming 2020 annual One Run.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to see the school board and anyone watching. So I'll make this an announcement like you've never heard of it before, and then please ask follow-up questions about anything that you think might be confusing that someone needs to understand better. So if you've never heard of One Run, this is the easiest way to raise money for your school. It is people signing up and registering for the event and then checking in. That check-in matters because those that check in push a portion of all the funds raised to the school. And this is the participant math, which is what we call it, is the total amount raised divided by the total number of people that showed up, and that is how we get the portion that's pushed to each school. Last year, it was around $54 per person that showed up was pushed to each school based on the participants that registered. So the more people that show up for your school, the more money that goes to your school. And then if you have a school that has maybe a tough time having people turn out for your school, maybe you're a teacher that has tried to get some money raised, but people are just busy, contact businesses and get them to show up for your school. Ask them to register on your behalf. You can bring more people. And this actually happened last weekend. I was at Fleet Feet talking about it, and there was a teacher there that said, wait a second, if I bring people for me, my school gets more money? And I said, yes. So that is how it works. I wanted to give just a little bit of information about this year. We've already raised over $20,000. We're hoping to make it to $25,000. So donations are still coming in. It is not too late to give. Donations can be given by corporate sponsors or private sponsors. So this is a both and. If you can give, please do. If you can come, please do. If you cannot do the other one, then don't. And it's totally fine. We will take all the donations, we will take all the people, and you're welcome to do both of those. Right now, we have 618 people registered for the event, which is already a larger number than the people that came in the event, which in 2021 was still a pandemic year, but it is on track for the very first time we had this event, which was around 700 people. So we're looking forward to having all of these people come to the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden on September 24th, so just a couple of weeks. Right now, DART is planning to offer free rides for anyone with a runner bib. So anyone that has a transportation issue, please let your school know. Your school can reach out to us. And each school is connected with, we have a volunteer that's connected to every school, so they know who to reach out to get a runner bib in advance if you have a family that needs transportation to the event. And then we also have some high schoolers that are volunteering through Silver Cords that will be lining the track to point people where to go. And then this is brand new information. The city has asked us to make it not a 2-mile run, but a 1-mile run just to accommodate all the events that are happening. So this year only you get a half-off run. So there you go. We would also love to have a drum line, so if there's any band directors watching from a middle school or a high school, it would be so fun to have an energy there with the drum line, and we would absolutely appreciate that. So my email is on the Des Moines Public School Foundation. We can connect through that if you reach out to us through that page. And then I would welcome questions from anything that sounds confusing. Please follow up.
So I'll just offer that Kristen is the energy and the vision behind One Run. So thank you, Kristen, for leaning in. That's how we recruited her to be on the School Foundation Board of Directors. So we consider this to be our signature event, and it's a wonderful opportunity for all of our schools to not only be able to have kiddos and their families and the teachers and the staff participate, but a great way to direct funds to each of those respective schools. So thank you for your vision, and we still need a few volunteers. So if anybody would like to volunteer the morning of, you can reach out to Jenna and I who serve on the foundation board, or Kristen. But just thank you so much for all of the energy and enthusiasm you have for this event. It wouldn't be possible without you, Kristen, so thank you.
I'm truly honored and happy to do it.
As somebody who's run before but is not in running shape anymore, we should put in a plug that you can walk.
You can walk.
You can walk.
Thank you for
So,
clarifying.
yeah.
And if there's any reason why you cannot run or walk, your check-in still will matter. We have had grandparents come and say, I don't want to run or walk. I want to stand here and cheer. And we're saying, that's perfect. And it's not only for grandparents, it's for anyone that doesn't run or walk. But that's a true example. You'll see in the photos just some really sweet sign holders cheering on the runners. And so that is also an option. The Silver Cord volunteers will be making some signs day of so schools can connect with their locations. And it's a very, very fun energy. It's definitely something everybody would want to be a part of. Anyone else? Well, thank you. If that is all, I really appreciate you inviting me to come. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public forum. We provide speakers at the forum an opportunity to address the board for up to 3 minutes regarding items that are not on the board agenda. If anyone wishes to speak during this forum, please email rosa.rivera-hernandez@dmschools.org. Speakers will be called individually, and we ask that you please state your name and address prior to providing comments. Students and minors do not have to provide their address. Guests of the board are encouraged to speak to matters relating to the programs, services, and operations of DMPS. Please remember that Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performance. Please avoid references to personalities or character attacks, as those types of comments do not contribute to the purpose for which the public forum exists. Thank you for your support of our school district. We appreciate your input. As a reminder to the board and public, this public forum is not a time for board engagement and discussion, as it is our obligation to discuss only matters posted in the public agenda for the sake of transparency and opportunity afforded to all community stakeholders. Matters requiring attention will receive appropriate staff and/or board follow-up at a time after the meeting. Ms. Rivera, do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, we do. We have a few speakers today. First off, I would like to call Sarah Reed. You may approach the podium.
Hi, I'm Sarah Reed. I live here in Des Moines. I don't feel comfortable sharing my address to the entirety of YouTube. What does white ethnocentric behavior expectations for students mean? I know you can't answer that because of the law, but I know you wouldn't answer anyway because I've asked and asked. And I have not received an answer to what I expected to be a pretty simple question. On July 16, I was catching up on school board meetings on the YouTube channel when I came to the June 14 work session, which featured the interim superintendent presenting his interim guardrails to the board and giving the board a chance to ask clarifying questions. He said, quote, "Lastly, we talked about the comparison data with white ethnocentric behavior expectations for students. We did a lot of debating around that comparison data set for Black males versus all students versus white students, and we landed on white students being the metric." He continued, quote, "Ultimately, we landed on the fact that we're going to stick with white ethnocentric because of not only the definition that we have, but also because of what our data says." Immediately after this, there was a pause to enable board members present to ask clarifying questions. Nobody asked to clarify anything. Personally, I'm not familiar with this phrase, but I'm always willing to learn, so I figured if this is important enough to be part of the interim guardrails, it's probably important to know what it means. So I emailed the school board for what I thought would be a quick, easy answer. It wasn't any sort of gotcha question. I simply asked, does DMPS have a definition they're using for this term? The board member who responded was not at the meeting, but referred me on to another member who was in attendance, who wasn't sure if this term was one of the ones the superintendent had defined for the board. It seems like if the board had been provided with definitions, it would have been easy enough to look up whether this was one of them, but instead I was forwarded on to the interim superintendent. In 4 or 5 emails back and forth, I received an apology, a promise to be more clear, an assertion of agreement with me, which was odd because I had not given an opinion, an offer of a meeting or a phone call, which never happened, a statement that there is no definition because the person who used the phrase doesn't know what it means, and some long phrases about the importance of diversity and cultural responsiveness, none of which answers the question, when this phrase was used in the meeting, what did it mean? Either nobody, including the person who used the phrase, actually knows what it means, or nobody wants to answer questions about it, but either option is actually kind of disturbing. I get the impression from the emails that nobody in DMPS actually does know what it means, despite it being used in a meeting, possibly as part of the interim guardrails. If that's the case, though, why didn't anybody on the board ask for clarification at the June 14 work session? Does the board feel as though they can't ask questions for some reason? That's concerning if so. The other alternative is that everyone does know, but nobody wants to say. And I'm not sure what to think about that, but that's also fairly concerning. I asked what should have been a simple question. This phrase was used at a meeting, and I'm not familiar with it. What does it mean? But nearly 2 months later, I still don't have an answer. And this is from a school board whose number 6 belief listed on their website is, quote, "We believe in a school district that operates with transparency, accountability, and efficiency at every level." Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker I'd like to call up is Lucas Jewell. Lucas Jewell. I'll move on to the next speaker. I have James Waters. James Waters. Okay, I'll move on to the next speaker. I have Kristen Anderson.
Kristen Anderson, 2709 34th Street in Des Moines. Good evening. I'm the parent of a 4-year-old who will be starting preschool at Woodlawn on Thursday. I'm here regarding mitigating COVID exposure and transmission in our schools. We know that COVID is airborne, and thus the key ways to avoid COVID outbreaks and transmissions include mask use, vaccinations, and air ventilation, filtration, and monitoring. Only 1.55% of children under the age of 5 in Polk County have been fully vaccinated. That means in my daughter's class of 20 kids, she will be the only one that's vaccinated. If we take 5 classes, she will still be the only one that is vaccinated. Vaccinations at this age group are not sufficient to reduce and mitigate COVID transmission. Let's look at masking. As masking is voluntary, I don't yet know how many other students will use masks. But what I've seen so far at Woodlawn leads me to expect no masking from teachers or staff. Few other children at other public indoor places use masks. One-way masking is far less effective at stopping COVID transmission. So what does that leave us with, especially from you who are in charge of structural policies? As vaccinations and one-way voluntary masking are insufficient, my ask today is for the district to invest in high-quality air ventilation and filtration and CO2 monitoring. A CDC study showed schools that used HEPA filters in their classrooms had a 41% lower COVID-19 rate compared to those that did not. Combined with better ventilation, HEPA filters reduce virus transmission 47% compared to schools that did nothing. The district could purchase HEPA filtration systems for each classroom. Corsi Rosenthal boxes are also a good stopgap solution as they can be easily and cheaply made and quickly installed. These types of boxes that are DIY yield approximately 67 to 75% reduction in concentration of virus-laden aerosol particles in classrooms. Additionally, CO2 monitors could give an indication of how well ventilated an area is, and then additional steps could be taken in those places where there is poor ventilation. Again, my request today is twofold. First, install air filtration systems in every indoor gathering space, including classrooms and lunchrooms. Second, install CO2 monitors in every classroom and identify steps to take when they rise above certain safe levels, 700 or 800. I was impressed with the way that Des Moines schools led at the beginning of the pandemic, especially when we did not see students and families' health prioritized at the state and national level when it came to policies. I would ask that you continue to lead on a structural level to keep our kids and community safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call up Shelley Schuster to the podium.
Shelley Schuster, 6520 Forest Court in Windsor Heights. I'm the mother of 4 DMPS children. 2 of them have been identified as struggling readers. They are the reason I'm here tonight and why I continue to show up and advocate for all children to have an equitable opportunity to learn how to read at school. Now, long before any of my children were born, researchers came out with a study that said a popular reading program was ineffective. That program was Reading Recovery. That was 20 years ago. And actually, just a few months ago, another study came out that said not only is Reading Recovery ineffective, it actually sets kids back in the long run. So my question is this: if all of us in this room care about student outcomes and all of us want kids to learn how to read at school, then why do we offer this ineffective reading program in our district? I don't want to assume that all of you know what Reading Recovery is, so let me back up a bit. Reading Recovery is a one-on-one intervention used with first grade students who have been identified as the most at risk for reading challenges. It's a method of teaching that involves strategies like looking at pictures and context clues and guessing what a word says. The training teachers have to go through for Reading Recovery is extensive and expensive. Did you know we have multiple teachers in our district and instructional coaches in our district who use Reading Recovery? A program that, again, is proven to not work. We literally have teachers who will show up to school tomorrow and get paid by public tax dollars to implement an expensive and ineffective reading intervention with some of our most at-risk first graders. I don't want to sound like I'm throwing anyone under the bus, because I truly believe that teachers are some of the most incredible people on planet Earth. But I am awfully tired of watching work sessions in this room and watching many of you around this table applaud the progress we have made when we are knee-deep in a literacy crisis. Please, as the elected voices in our community for our school district, please ask district leaders the following questions. How many teachers use Reading Recovery intervention? How does Reading Recovery align with our district literacy goals and the science of reading? How are students doing years after receiving Reading Recovery intervention in first grade? And how are their gains being measured long-term? It's time to quit talking and celebrating small movements, and it's time to abandon harmful practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the speakers we have.
Thank you to all of our speakers this evening. We appreciate and value your voice. Again, I would like to reiterate that any matters requiring attention will receive appropriate staff and or board follow-up at a time after this meeting. Next on the agenda are the consent items. We allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, please email rosa.rivera-hernandez@dmschools.org. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid reference to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. We appreciate your input. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with the speaker. Regarding comments made to agenda items, discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determinations as deemed necessary. Ms. Rivera, do we have any speakers this evening?
We do not.
Ms. Martirano, I believe you have the consent motion.
I do. Do we need to pull those items
Yep,
first
yep, those are-
or
yep,
after?
Yep, we'll pull those items now, so we will just be voting on all consent items minus 9, 12, and 13.
And
Chair, I apologize. I do need to also pull consent item number 2.
Number 2.
Yes, thank you.
And may I ask that we just amend the minutes from May 23rd, from the May 23rd meeting, because I was present, and it has me listed as absent, please.
You said for the May?
May 23rd.
Okay.
Sorry, August 23rd.
Okay, I was like, wait. did I miss
Thank
that?
you.
So amend the minutes then for you to be present?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $29,491,042.33, and procurement key card transactions in the amount of $423,353.98.
We have a motion by Ms. Martirano. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion by Ms. Martirano, a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 7-0. Next, we will go through the pulled items that we have. We have consent item D2. And Ms. Sawyer, you pulled that one.
I was not present at that meeting, so I will abstain from that vote.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve item D2.
Caldwell Johnson, second.
We have a motion to approve item D2 by Ms. Martirano, a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 6, and with 1 abstaining.
I'll make a motion to approve D9.
I have a motion by Ms. Martirano to approve D9, a second.
Second, Caldwell Johnson.
We have a motion by Ms. Martirano, a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson to approve item D9. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with my board colleagues that I would be voting no on this. And it's not that I do not invest marketing in our district. I support a strategic marketing effort for our district. It has never been more important for us to be competitive in the marketplace when it comes to recruiting and retaining our students. And I just don't believe that the plan that's been presented to the board demonstrates that strategic return on investment and has laid out the clear, concrete KPIs that are what I think our students really need and our district really needs to make this size of an investment at this time.
So I'm going to add to that. I'll be voting no, and in large part the same as Ms. Knox. I think that our discretionary dollars are very limited, and I do not feel there's clarity of how the inputs will impact the outcomes.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, we have a motion by Ms. Martirano and a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 5-2. Next is item D12. Ms. Knox.
Make a motion to approve D12.
Thank you.
Second, Caldwell Johnson.
And I just need to abstain from this vote.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Ms. Martirano, a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. Vote is approved, 6 with 1 abstaining. Next item is D13.
Motion to approve D13.
Second, Caldwell Johnson.
Again, I just need to abstain from this vote.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Martirano and a second by Ms. Caldwell-Johnson. Any discussion or questions for item D13? All right, Board members, please cast your votes. Vote is approved, 6 with 1 abstaining. Next on the agenda is public hearing. We have item E1, public hearing for B8856 Easton Roosevelt High School's dugout replacement. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item E1? Hearing no one, I will close the public hearing. Superintendent Smith, would you please introduce the matter?
I recommend that the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by RDG for dugout replacement at East and Roosevelt High Schools, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
May I have a motion and a second to approve item E1?
Caldwell Johnson, move approval.
Alonso, second.
We have a motion by Ms. Caldwell Johnson, a second by Ms. Alonso Diaz. Any discussion or questions? Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have information-only items. Information-only items are just items for not only board colleagues to see, but the community to see as well. We don't talk or have any questions about these information-only items, and I just want to bring your attention to our Des Moines Public School goals for information only. Next on the agenda, we have items of privilege. I would like to ask if there are any board members who have anything to share this evening.
I'm passing around information on the Iowa Association of School Boards conference. I know there's a couple of conferences out there. Kelly shared one as well, but in case anybody's interested, I'll be attending, so you're welcome to join me. I'm also passing around a reading that I thought was interesting. I'm like my mom, I rip things out of newspapers and magazines. So,
What's the date for that? Is that in November?
the IASB conference is Iowa Association of School Boards, November 16th to 18th here in Des Moines.
Okay. Anyone else? I would just like to say to our staff that, we wish you a great school year. It's nice to start the school year off in one way that feels somewhat normal, but just want to encourage our staff and our students as we begin a new year. It's always exciting to start a brand new school year, and for the many great things that I believe will happen for this district. So I want to wish all of our staff and students an amazing, amazing school year. I will now turn things over to our interim superintendent, Smith, for a superintendent's report.
Yeah, I'll just capitalize on that. I just want to welcome back all of our almost 5,000 employees and 30,000 students. Maybe we had a great 9 days back to school. And honestly, I don't know that I could have asked for a better 9 days to start the year off. So everybody is joyful and looking forward to digging deeply into improving not only academic outcomes for students, but also the conditions and the outcomes for staff as well. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and it's going to be a good school year.
Thank you. I thank you all for joining us this evening. We greatly appreciate you all. This meeting is adjourned at 6:05 p.m.